Good morning. It's Wednesday, and welcome back to Coffee with the Farmer, a resource manager. And the good news is I'm actually here today. For those of you who tuned in yesterday, I had a little bit of technical difficulty, and as soon as I hit broadcast, my whole internet connection went down. And that's because, we're in a rural area where my office is, and our broadband went down. So apologize for that. Great to be back today. And I'm really looking forward to talking in a bit with Javier Quintero from Driscoll's. But first, like we always do, we're going to do a roundabout of introductions with all of our staff around the state and start out also with today's question. So my name is Mary Kimball. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Land-Based Learning, and I'm in Winters. And the question for today is, what is a little gardening tip that you might have to share with other folks? There's a lot of talk and a lot of action around gardening right now, which is really great. Those of us who are in the food and ag and environmental sciences, world really like it when we see people interested in their food supply and where their food comes from and really connecting with that, because you also get a lot more appreciation, right, for how hard it is to create such beautiful food that we all oftentimes take for granted. So my little tip that I'll share today is around kind of my favorite thing to grow. And that is cucumbers. I absolutely love to grow specifically Armenian cucumbers and lemon cucumbers. Those are my two faves because they're super easy. You totally can't go wrong. They never die, and they produce a lot of cucumbers. So it's like my favorite thing, and also my favorite thing. People love to get them as gifts. So you can't go wrong with Armenian cucumbers or lemon cucumbers if that's something you're looking to figure out what to grow this year. So Dana, you are up.
Good morning. I'm Dana Baker, the Tehama County Farms Leadership Coordinator, and I'm coming to you from Red Bluff. I actually love to garden because I love to can, and probably one of my favorite things to grow is okra because I love canned spicy pickled okra. So okra, and then also some different hot jalapenos and different hot peppers to use in my jars. I would say those are my favorite. I also enjoy growing everything for salsa because I also do a canned salsa every year. So looking forward to working on getting those in the ground here soon.
Yep. Very good. Joseph.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Montoya. I'm the Farms Leadership Coordinator for the Sacramento Valley. So similar to Dana, I actually also grow jalapenos and tomatoes. Tomatoes, especially in Sacramento, we have really great weather here. Tomatoes grow really, really well here. And it's one of those things that, can get a bit expensive if you buy them at the grocery store. But, if you have your own garden or some space, you can save a lot of money, and also, you get your own tomatoes. Fantastic. And one of my gardening tips is something that I learned from my abuelita is talking to your plants. As a kid, I thought it was kind of silly, but she actually lives in a small apartment, but has a small patio where she just has the most lush garden there. It's seriously a jungle. I mean, she's only about 5 feet tall, and so it works well for her. But it's a jungle in there, and they grow really, really well. They said it feels kind of silly, but I do notice that, you have to remember that they are living beings. Maybe they can't talk, but, for someone who's looking for a pet or something like that, but doesn't have, can't buy the food for, a dog or a cat or even a fish, something that's a lot easier is, growing a plant. So that's something.
Very true. Thank you, Joseph. Katie.
Good morning. My name is Katie Wortman, coming to you from Fresno. I'm the Central Valley Farms Leadership Program Coordinator. Gardening, I'm kind of on the supervisor level. I don't really do it myself, but I watch it be done. But I know that kind of staggering what you plant so not everything comes on at one time, and to watch the squash, like once it's big enough, pick it, because the next day it's going to be huge. But same, I'm going to need some recipes from Dana about that okra.
I know, that's right. Okay, Letty, you're up.
Hi, I'm Letty. I am the farms coordinator from Monterey and Santa Cruz County. I'm very jealous that you can grow okra, Dana, because mine will not grow here. It's too cloudy. We don't get enough sun for sure. For me, gardening is a huge part of my mental health, and I guess that's my tip. If you just go, just being outside, connecting with the soil, grounding yourself, it actually really helps your physical health and your mental health. And another tip is 1 hour of gardening is comparable to 3 hours at the gym. So I want to do some of that.
Another reason why a lot of people are doing more gardening right now, and being with their families and their kids. So it's a great time to garden. It's always a great time to garden, but definitely this year. The year of the garden, 2020. Well, thanks everyone. And now we'll switch over to introducing our guest. Javier Quintero, again, is the Early Career Programs Manager for Driscoll's. And Javier and Driscoll's have been a really critical partner for the Farms Leadership Program now for 4 years. We have been really humbled and just so thankful for their support over these years in order to start new farms programs of course, in Letty's area in Monterey, Santa Cruz, as well as in Dana's area up in Tehama County, because Driscoll's also has their rootstock nurseries up there in Tehama County. And so we have been very fortunate to work with them on a lot of different levels. We also have a wonderful alumni of the farms program, Crystal Verduzco, who is from the Stockton area and is a part of the San Joaquin Farms program many years ago, who now is a longtime staff actually of Driscoll's, and has really helped connect us with the company. So Javier, your job is near and dear to our hearts, and we'll talk more about that, of course, but why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came into this role?
Of course, good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for having me this morning. I'm really excited to talk about Driscoll's and a little bit about myself and my career journey. But for me, Driscoll's has always been near and dear to my heart. I'm growing up in the Santa Cruz County area in Watsonville, seeing Driscoll's grow from just strictly a strawberry company to now providing, 3 additional commodities, blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. That's truly inspired me. And, now being an employee, I've seen the global presence we have and how we really enrich the lives of everyone we touch, which is, part of our mission. And so being able to contribute to that, whether it's not physically touching a plant or a berry, but also encouraging staff and early career professionals, to develop their career, to see what type of reach we have, even here in Watsonville or in the Santa Cruz County. And so my journey started about 4.5 years ago. I'm kind of embarrassed to say now, makes me feel old.
Oh, please.
But the reason why I share that is because, I, in my senior year of college, I was working full-time in construction. I'm going to school for full-time. So I wasn't able to, dedicate time to, an internship. Mm-hmm. Of course, I started my job search late in the game, and a lot of job opportunities were filled in the area. And, to me, I was getting a lot of rejection notifications or 0 responses. And so to me, I said, hey, I got to rethink my job search strategy. And so one of the things that I looked was like, what are some of the biggest employers in the area? Obviously, one was Driscoll, but I didn't think about it. It wasn't top of mind for sure. I'm not going to lie. What I did discover was that, hey, Driscoll's and some of the larger employees partner with third-party staffing agencies that give you that opportunity to put your foot in the door. Mm-hmm. So long story short, there was a position that required 5 years of experience. However, the recruiter I was working with, saw how eager I was to get my foot in the door, how passionate I was about the agriculture industry, And as a result of that, you know, she's like, hey, I feel confident in you, and I want you to feel confident in yourself to interview with this manager. And I kid you not, I walked in, I interviewed. I was on my way home, which is about 10 minutes from the corporate offices, when I got a call from the recruiter saying, hey, we want to hire you, and we're going to give you a $2 pay increase to take the job. And as you can imagine, I was ecstatic. And that is because I walked in and I knew that this role was a little bit over my head and I didn't have any hands-on experience. But the reason why I mentioned that is because now I'm in a very unique role where I can help influence a lot of, kind of shape your career as an intern with Driscoll's. And so that's really been, you know, what keeps me motivated. And I think one of the other things that I want to touch on as, you know, students begin to their job search and internship searches, to really see how those respective companies' values, you know, resonate with you. Those are the three key things that I focus on at Driscoll. Our three values are passion, humility, and trustworthiness. I mean, it's amazing to be a part of an organization that, you know, that has those three values that I live by every day. You know, obviously sometimes your energy levels are going to be a little bit lower and your passion's probably not going to jump out at you. But needless to say, I think going into a work environment where those values are clearly evident, and you have an opportunity to impact a global company. So that's been my journey here at Driscoll's. I'll jump in to talk a little bit about the internship program.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because as you know, because of working with us, Javier, our students around the state go through the programs, and then we hope that we can connect them with both job shadows and paid internships in the industry, either after their senior year or even beyond, that once they're out in college and so on. So it would be great to hear from you, kind of how you put that internship program together, what you're looking for. I think you probably, you know, talked about that just a little bit in your opening, but even some more details as to the kinds of things that you look for, whether it's in resumes or in interviews. Love to hear from your perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, so our internship here at Driscoll's, you know, follows, you know, the traditional summer format. Part of the reason why is, you know, in California, that's our peak production time. So the idea for our interns is to not necessarily get pigeonholed to a specific department or function that they're interning with, but really the overarching goal is for, you know, students and, you know, recent graduates to identify career opportunities and really discover different outlets that the agriculture industry has to offer. So year after year, we host anywhere from 20 to 25 interns, spanning from, you know, corporate functions to, you know, boots on the ground is what I like to say. So your production roles, your farming roles, your research roles. And really the goal for our program is not just to have someone in, you know, come in and do coffee runs or donut runs. And that's the first thing I tell any candidates who are applying. But in fact, it's really to help develop that future talent, you know, pipeline for Driscoll, not just next year, but, you know, 5 to 10 years down the road. You know, I kid you not when I say our CEO, Miles Ryder, you know, he meets with our interns every summer. One of his, you know, takeaways is, you know, Javier, how do we continue to, you know, develop these, you know, students and future talent at Driscoll's to take on my role one day? You know, obviously it is a family-oriented business, but needless to say, you know, that talent's not always going to exist within the family, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for interns at an early stage in their careers. But for the most part, you know, the internships are within that 3-month time frame. We do have a few others that are focused on 6 months or up to a year. Those are really more for like advanced degrees. Someone, you know, getting a PhD in plant science or a, you know, master's degree in business, you know, to take on a senior manager role. But for the most part, really focus on the undergraduate level, primarily because we understand that's about 90% of the roles require that level of education. And so that places a big emphasis. And I am proud to say that, you know, over the last year and a half that I've taken over the program, we have achieved a 50% conversion rate, which means
wow,
our interns were offered full-time jobs either upon, you know, walking out the door and coming back 6 months later, or immediately after the internship. And just a couple of weeks ago, we also converted an additional 3 interns from last year's class. So as you can see, you know, it's really a partnership. It's not just Javier's program. That's not something that I like to, you know, sell when I'm meeting with managers, but instead to say, how do we build this program for Driscoll's? And obviously we have about 5,000 employees globally.
Yeah.
The program focuses primarily in the US. About 95% of our roles are in California. So that's been my primary focus. And yeah, and like I said, the roles range year after year. Those roles aren't set in stone. Sometimes we get technical roles within the plant science space that are, you know, maybe 5 to 10 roles. For the most part, though, they are within the corporate function. So marketing, sales, etc.
Perfect. Yeah, I was also going to ask you, where do your interns come from? So do they come from all around California, from 2-year, from 4-year? What are some of their, you know, background experience? And again, what the kinds of things do you look for in people's experience in their resumes? What are the things that stand out for you?
Yeah, great question. So the majority of our interns do come from a 4-year program. However, last year we did bring on 2 interns from a junior college level. So brand new. It's a shift in mindset because, again, in actuality, there's a lot of roles that don't require that level of education, but in fact, you know, do ask for, you know, comparable hands-on experience. Depending on the roles, you know, those are some of the conversations I have with managers. So a lot of the planning for our internship program and really defining, you know, what skill sets, what candidate profile we're looking for happens in about October, November timeframe. And so the idea is for us to ensure, you know, if we see talent gaps within our respective organization, whether it's sales, marketing, plant science, we want to partner with local universities, local junior colleges to say, hey, you know, we'll offer internships to your students if you are, you know, able to implement these specific subject areas in your corporate curriculum. So it's pretty awesome to see that Driscoll is able to influence curriculum at, you know, some of the biggest universities in the US, right? So we have the majority of our students, about 80% of our interns are from California.
Okay.
The other 20% we try to allocate to diversify our candidate pool. We do understand that at the end of the day, we do experience some retention issues with students, because if someone's relocating from New York or to California, we don't really have a lot of metrics to back up what retention looks like, but chances are they're trying to beef up their resume. You know, when I took over the role, I tried to focus more on local candidates, you know, primarily California. However, we do have operations in Florida and in Georgia, and so that can give us an opportunity to find talent in those respective areas. So we're taking a step back in terms of our sourcing strategy for students to make sure that we are increasing in conversion rates and also retention. So a great example, you know, she's been with us for a handful of years. I'm a good example as well, going on 5 years now. So we're definitely seeing that strategy has paid off. However, we haven't been doing enough, and I think managers are starting to, you know, the light's going on and saying, hey, that's an opportunity for us to not have to go through this recruitment process year after year.
Yes, which is very expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got some questions that are coming in. So Letty, do you want to unmute Juan Perez and he can ask his question? And Juan is a local guy, so he can introduce himself as well. Javier.
Hey, what's up? My name's Juan. I'm from Salinas, so I know about Driscoll's a lot, and I'm actually currently in Soledad. So my question is really, like, when people apply to this internship program, are you looking more for like a GPA or like an experiences that they have had in the past, or like essays that they write? Because every program is obviously different. And also, what are you looking for them at the end of the internship? Like, what do you want them to learn within their internship?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you know, a lot of the planning in terms of what that student's background should look like happens in October. So it varies. So some managers are looking for, you know, certain GPA requirements coupled with, you know, another internship under the belt if it's a very technical role. So those technical roles I'm talking around, like plant breeding, you know, agronomy, applied research, those are roles that do, you know, require some level of hands-on experience as well as coursework experience. But then we have some of your corporate functions that we focus primarily on, for example, marketing. They have a pretty stringent criteria in terms of what they look for, and it's probably the most competitive role we have. We typically receive anywhere from 150 to 200 applicants for one marketing role. And so with that, we get very selective with how the design of their resume, as well as what coursework they've taken. So it really depends. A lot of what I say and what I found successful with our recruitment strategy is participating in any of those recruitment fairs. Although we've seen the numbers dwindle a bit since I first started, I kid you not, 17 out of the 19 interns we had last year were selected out of a career fair. So building that personal connection with not just me as the recruiter, but also the hiring manager will go a long way in terms of your resume getting reviewed and having a hiring manager interview, at least. In terms of skill sets, we don't, again, I know I touched on a little bit of like hands-on experience. It's not saying that we want 1 to 3 years experience, but instead to say, hey, do you have any customer service experience, which is something that we look for in all of our roles, right? So if you're working in a plant breeding role, your customers are growers. If you're working in an HR role, our customers are our employees. So that's a skill set that tends to be something people spell out on the resume, but when we have a conversation with them to say, hey, give me an example of that, tends to be neglected a bit. One of the other things that we focus on are the soft skills. So things that communication styles and how do you interact with others in the team. Those go much further than, say, technical skills, particularly within internship roles or early career or entry level positions. Because at Driscoll's we live by the motto of, hey, we're willing to teach someone that's hungry, passionate, and has that fire in them. Kind of like me. I didn't have a whole lot of experience, but I was able to roll up my sleeves and I embodied the company values, at least the hiring manager. I hope I do. Those things outweigh, and you can ask any other recruiter on our team. We're a team of 4 recruiters, and they'll tell you that company values and culture fit outweigh technical skills any day. Obviously, there's some roles that do require, but those are senior level and director level positions. When it comes to entry level positions, you'll be surprised. A lot of the resumes and candidates that we bring in don't have a lot of experience, and I think that's a testament to how much we believe in our company values.
Mm-hmm. So that I really appreciate your point, about the passion piece, and just that you feel a lot of fire in people, because, and we've said this before, a lot of times students think that they have to have certain things on their resumes, right? And even just to get in the door. But that is not necessarily the case if you are a person who can show your passion and interest in a position, and who can eloquently say why you want that job, right? And they've researched your company, like you were talking about, your mission, your values. You obviously have spent time getting to know your company and why they are wanting to intern there. Even if they don't have a lot of the hands-on or previous experience. That to me always goes way further. When I can see that someone has spent the time to really learn about the company and understand how they could fit within that company, makes a big difference, and usually much more so than just necessarily a whole lot of experience. So especially at that internship piece. So I think that I really appreciate you bringing that up, and you have multiple times. Your own experience is a testament to that too. And so Katie, I think you had a question. Did you want to ask it?
I think you kind of touched on it. Just from a coordinator standpoint, how can we help our students become successful employees? You touched on the soft skills and just being, willing to do the work, and maybe you weren't hired for a certain job, but you're doing what you need to do to move up in the company, and, being on time, like those things and those skills that some students kind of don't concentrate on being important, but those things might be the most important. You kind of highlighted on it. I don't know if you want to touch, talk anymore, but thank you for that.
No, I would just to add and reiterate, I would say when I meet with candidates or any managers meet with candidates and they hear someone has done their homework on the industry, to say, hey, I learned on LinkedIn that Driscoll's donated $4 million for their
Yeah.
philanthropy programs. That current event or that relevant example will go a long way. And obviously, that resume is ultimately what gets you kind of to that first layer or that first door. But really, my role is to partner with organizations like yourself to build that contact to say, hey, here are the opportunities. Do you have any students in mind? So a lot of my recruitment efforts, that you can imagine, is just one of me and, over 500 candidates that we get. A lot of my connections with universities and training institutions are picking up the phone and having these conversations to make sure that we're serious about your students.
Mm-hmm.
Their resumes don't get overlooked. So a good example, I won't name the university, but I participated in one of the career fairs. I met with one of their deans, and they sent me 5 resumes. They said, hey, I trust that these students will do a fantastic job interviewing. Pick up the phone, give them a call, and I did. We hired one of them. Being able to have that connection with faculty, staff, and building that trusting relationship goes a long way, because I know a lot of students, whoever on the line, are probably thinking, well, how does Javier select my resume out of 150?
Yeah.
As we can, we rely heavily on referrals, whether it's internal referrals, external referrals, or any type of interaction you may have, whether it's going to the laundromat or to the grocery store and you run into someone. I've handed out my business card on flights to to Mexico, and I've got calls from candidates there. So again, just that networking piece would be great. Just encouraging students to know how to network and leverage technology. I think this is a good example of what we're going through now. Is we're using Zoom, as a way to connect with each other, but also leveraging LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. There's so much information out there for professionals and aspiring professionals that they can use to leverage in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn, Javier, as well as just that whole piece about networking, because we certainly encourage all of the students that are in our Farms Advanced program to have a LinkedIn account and to use it. For networking, of course, but also for in learning about a company or other potential people that they may know that have connections to a particular company that they're interested in. So, and if for those students who are listening, if you do not yet have a LinkedIn account, you better do one very soon, especially if you're looking in the future soon at internships and jobs. You can't start too early. All of the folks that you've met from the Farms Leadership Program, probably many of them at the different field day locations, are on LinkedIn, and you can connect with them now and start building those relationships. Letty had a question, and it was a question that I actually was going to ask as well. So Letty, why don't you go ahead and ask it of Javier?
Yeah. My question is, I know we've already talked about this, Javier, but maybe for those listening, if you can let us know where you are at currently now with internships for this coming summer. I know with the current state of our world, things are a lot different this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and it's something that I've been asked quite a few times over the last month. But in actuality, we were looking at hosting about 22 interns this summer. About half of them were put on hold until further notice. So I've had conversations with our executive team, and the positions that we extended offers to, we didn't rescind them. We kept them. We wanted to make sure that those students had that opportunity. Obviously, it's a bit of a different format. That we are dividing up their work remotely for the first time experience. So that may be a different experience for them that they signed up for originally. The other 10 are still up in the air. I'm working with managers to say, hey, is there an opportunity to have a fall intern, which is something we traditionally don't offer. But it's not to say that the intern wouldn't get the same experience, because that's primarily like the tail end of our production season. So that still gives them an opportunity to see all the moving parts of our operation, from research and development to our supply chain operations to our nursery operations, which is really complex. And I think that experience is something that we want to continue to share and sell as a career outlet for students going forward. But in terms of this year, we are looking at, or this summer, sorry, we're looking at 10 that internship opportunities have already been filled. But if anyone on the line is interested in connecting with me to have a one-on-one conversation, I'm always flexible to do that. In addition to that, take a look at your resume and even share it with some of the hiring managers. So last year, well, in a number of different events that we go to, some students are like, hey, I missed the window to apply.
Mm-hmm.
Do is I pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm happy to have a half hour, an hour conversation about you and your career aspirations and connect you with the right professionals within Driscoll's. And a lot of them typically yield great results. They get job offers or internship opportunities out of that because they're months ahead of the competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering about how because you were talking about the career fairs earlier and about the one-on-one. Obviously, that won't be happening. You won't be doing any career fairs for a while.
Right.
So I was wondering how you were going to do the interviews. I was guessing you were probably going to utilize Zoom or phone or whatever it might be. And just if you had any kind of, for any student right now who will be going through this process coming up soon, what kinds of recommendations would you give them to have these interviews, over the phone or over Zoom versus in person? Because it really is a different dynamic. And if you have any recommendations for folks.
That's a really good point, and it's funny how you mentioned that. One of the first things that my fellow senior recruiters mentioned to me as I jumped into this space was, focus and pay attention to the candidate's body language.
Mm-hmm.
Times when you pick up the phone, you have a wonderful conversation, like, man, this person's gonna hit a home run when they interview with the manager, and then they come in, and I kid you not, there's some candidates that come in. They're not dressed professionally. Although we are a business casual environment, the expectation is for you to come in professionally. But then other candidates have not even been able to look me in the eye to shake my hand. They look down at the ground. They're not prepared. They're super nervous. And I totally understand that coming in for an interview is not an easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we tend to offer on the recruiting side is we give you tips. We're not going to make this such a big challenge, right? So I usually send a couple video links for them to learn more about our company, share a little bit about the panel members' background so they can connect with them on LinkedIn as well. And then we also share a little bit more about how to emphasize and frame your questions and your responses using our company values. So a lot it's not that you're on your own. We're here to partner with the manager. Obviously, they're one of our biggest customers, but then the other customer is you as a candidate. We're not going to let you in on your own. We want to make sure we're connecting with you early and frequently, so that way you're best positioned to interview well.
So this half an hour has flown by, as they always do, but I wanted to give you the opportunity as we finish out to do a little bragging about Driscoll's. I know you're very proud, and you mentioned it in passing, but it is an incredible gift that Driscoll's just made, the $4 million. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what the response Driscoll's has been to the communities in which they serve and how they're supporting them?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think for me, one of the things that I found interesting, and the reason why I learned more about our employee giving program was I recruited a position late last year. So I have a little bit more background about it, but the main goal of it is, we talk so much about enriching the lives of everyone we touch.
Mm-hmm.
From a consumer perspective or from an outsider perspective, you're thinking, well, you're just looking to profit off of people consuming your berries. Well, yeah, that's it's part of the nature of business, right? To make money and continue to prosper. However, one of the things that I've seen throughout my time at Driscoll's is our involvement with the communities that we operate in. So you mentioned we have operations in Northern California, here on the Central Coast, and in Southern California. So each of the respective regions have a certain budget allocated for the number of employees that we have. So globally, I think we have about $13 million that is used on a yearly basis to get more involved in our communities, whether that's sponsoring a specific event. Like in the Central Coast, we have our Strawberry Festival, which I was happy to volunteer as. It's a couple of days that we're spending time talking about Driscoll's, sharing the joy of our berries. But then really the goal of our program is to not necessarily just hand over money, but get involved. Have Driscoll's employees out there, whether it's a harvester or our executives. We all play a pivotal role in sharing and representing our company and the brand that we also proudly wear, whether it's on a hat or a shirt, and interacting with the community, because there's a lot of scrutiny, and people tend to scrutinize Driscoll's a lot for various reasons, and I'm not going to go into those conversations right now, but I think it's good for them to see that that we do have a diverse pool of talent, are actively engaged, and that we are here to support the communities that we impact. And it's not so much for a for-profit company, but in fact we want to make sure that the local communities are prospering as well.
Thank you, Javier. And I'll, I think the press release just came out earlier, maybe it was last week, but my understanding is that the $4 million went to this recent gift, went to a lot of health clinics in the Monterey Bay area in order to help them to respond to this COVID-19 crisis. And as you've said, very, very well, Driscoll's has always been a really critical partner in many of these communities that do need a great deal of support from the business community, and Driscoll's has always been a leader in that. So we thank you. We thank Miles. Please tell Miles that we very much appreciate all of the support of Driscoll's for the Center for Land-Based Learning, for all of our students, and for all of your employees and community members. So with that, thank you for being a part of our Coffee with the Farmer Resource Manager. And I know that you are always open to emails and to phone calls, and we can get that information out to folks. Just let us, anybody who's listening, let us know. We'll get you Javier's information, but you're always very open to those kinds of conversations. So thanks again.
Of course, and thank you all for having me. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.